Aloha and welcome to Wind in Her Hair. I'm Anna, your host, and today's a solo episode. Today's going to be a bit of a somber one, if I'm being straight up with you, because I was having one of my 10-minute grief sessions this morning during my alignment hour, which is when I read my Bible and pray and journal and meditate and heal intentionally from anything that I've suppressed. And during this time, I started journaling and something came out. I had a bit of an epiphany and I thought, I have to share this with my people, my friends on the podcast so that people don't miss out on their own healing. So the title is The Biggest Mistake I Ever Made. Probably isn't what you think it is. So I used to think that the biggest mistake in my life was becoming a single mom. Not that my son saved my life. He's one of the best things that ever happened to me. But that was really hard. The church had me get up on stage and repent. Or maybe getting divorced was one of the biggest mistakes in my life because now I have my children dealing with the aftermath, which has been years of ongoing restoration and healing. Or I thought maybe it's having sex before marriage because you're giving your body away to people who don't deserve it. And then you end up becoming a single mom. But looking back, none of those were my biggest mistake. And I realized I set my timer for 10 minutes this morning, sitting here in Dallas, Texas by the pool with my journal and my coffee and just sitting there with my eyes closed and just letting God move, the Holy Spirit just move and work. And something came to mind. And to make a really long story short, I interviewed a gentleman on my podcast not too long ago. He is a hypnotherapist and he walked me through an exercise on the podcast. As I'm talking about some painful memories, one in particular jumped up and he could tell I was emotional about it because it's something that has been haunting me periodically for the last 17 years. So it came up on the podcast and he could tell I was emotional and he said, Anna, this is what I do. He said, will you let me walk you through this? And I said, for sure, let's do it. Let's go. And so he said, close your eyes. He said, I want you to go back to your 29-year-old self sobbing in the shower after this incident where your ex-husband guilted you into having sex with you before marriage, which wasn't the plan. That's a long story for another time. And he said, your 48-year-old self, I'm 48 now, a lot older, more mature, more wiser, more grounded, more spiritual. I want you to go back to her in that shower. She's 29, fragile, broken, feeling unworthy and untreasured and just shitty. Go back to her and embrace her and just tell her it's okay. We've made it really far. You've healed. You've done well. It's okay. And just embrace her. And in the podcast, I'm sobbing. And so this is something that I've done every once in a while. I go back to that broken version of me and I do this thing called reassurance. In my mind, I'm hugging her. I'm holding her hand. I'm talking to her. I'm saying, it's okay. You've healed. You've come so far. You are not worthless. You are worthy. You are chosen. You are beautiful. You are seen. Because I'm rewriting that old story I told myself. I'm rewriting it because I had adopted a false story all these years. And so what you do is you rewrite the story and you put the old story in the trash. And it really is very, very healing. Because if you can believe a false story for 20 years, why wouldn't your mind believe a true story for the rest of your life? As I'm sitting there on my back patio, having this epiphany about another painful memory that popped up having to do with suicide, one of the dark nights of the soul. And I decided, okay, it's time to deal with this. It's time to go back to that moment because I'd been avoiding it. Just that pain, that heartache, it's so real. And I know we don't want to relive it, so we continue to suppress. And I thought, this is preventing my growth. Just as a 20-pound weight in a backpack would hinder or slow your progress when you're running a marathon, this is no different. And so looking back, none of those things that I just named were my biggest mistake. My biggest mistake was believing those things changed my worth. It's all about mindset. I adopted an untrue story, an identity, a mindset that slowed my growth, hindered my productivity, hindered my relationships. I took these negative, painful experiences and I attached a meaning to them. Subconsciously, we're doing this. We're not doing this intentionally. And so let's dive into section 1, the story I told myself. So growing up, in a Christian loving home, you would think would be really beneficial. But my parents divorced when I was 13. And I see at a young age how I had the fear of abandonment and betrayal because my dad left and he wasn't a huge part of our lives. And then I allowed myself, I entertained, I tolerated behavior from men that didn't value my worth. And they used my body, and I allowed them to. And I thought that if I gave my body to them, that they would love me more. And that's just not true. In fact, it's the opposite. And then I became a single mom, which did a number on me because the church had me get up on stage and repent for having a baby out of wedlock. They just wanted to make sure the community knew that I wasn't this wild whore just gallivanting around the North Shore of Oahu, where I'm from. And I thought that the divorce kind of left a stigma on me, that Anna's this divorced woman, she's uneducated, she's a yard sale, she's a train wreck. She married this narcissist, marriage failed. And just feeling so behind in life in general because I was just this gypsy. Yes, when I was 18, I moved to New York City to model, and then a year later moved to Europe to model for a year and just kind of got some wind in my hair and just went all over the world, exploring, eyes full of wonder and curiosity. And because I allowed men to use my body, because I was a single mother and was put on stage, that sent a message to me that I was cheap and bad and there was something wrong with me. And so then I walked into a toxic marriage that nearly broke me, just hollowed me out. And I believed that God gave up on me, that he just disappeared into the shadows because I couldn't figure it out. And because of that, I felt like, okay, everything's going to be difficult from here on out because I don't deserve anything really, truly good or pure or wholesome. And I'm going to have to work really hard to earn anything good and to prove my worth. Those were the mindsets that I adopted. The events in themselves were not controlling my life. It was the meaning that I attached to the events. And I could have attached one of two meanings. I could have said, this has nothing to do with my worth. When my ex-husband, before we got married, we both agreed that we would not have sex before marriage because it's how we were raised. Yes, we both had sex before marriage. But we decided, we came together, we knew each other 5 months before we got married. Long story, did not work out clearly. Never do that again. And he agreed, okay, I will honor you. Let's not have sex before marriage. Well, he didn't really mean it. And being a narcissist and dismissive avoidant, he guilted me into having sex. And that act made me feel so cheap and so worthless and so undervalued. I don't remember anything about the sex itself, but I went into the shower and just sobbed. And I know he heard me. It was a small house, but he didn't do a thing about it because he's a dismissive avoidant. He doesn't know how to sit with other people's emotions. And so I attached to that meaning that I'm undervalued, that I'm worthless, that I'm not worth waiting for. And once again, it comes back to just my body is the only thing I have to offer. Section 2, how shame becomes an identity. So the difference between guilt and shame. Guilt is, I made a mistake. Shame is, I am a mistake. And the fact that God would use me, uneducated, middle class, yard sale, single mother, divorced, I'm just like bewildered in awe that God would take somebody like me with my past and use me for something good, for a greater purpose. That has just been mind-blowing for me. For example, when I got divorced, I chose to divorce. I don't regret it at all. It's been hard on the kids, of course, but I'm free. I am healed. I am whole. I am walking in my purpose. I am no longer silenced and small and hollow. But marrying somebody who's narcissistic and dismissive avoidant makes you feel like you have no worth, no value, nothing to offer. Just stay in your corner, Anna, be silent, be small, and make me look good. Single mom, less desirable. Failed relationships, I'm not enough. Pain is temporary, but identity stories can literally last decades. And when the church had me get up on stage and repent, 20 years later, I've told the story, I'll make it quick. 20 years later, I'm in a vineyard in Texas with two of my dearest friends, girlfriends. And she leaned forward and looked at me and said, Anna, when I told her the story of me getting up on stage, she said, Anna, you've been punishing yourself. And you think God's been punishing you too. And it brought tears to my eyes because I realized it hit me. Because I was put up on stage, I thought I was cheap and something was wrong with me and I was bad because not everybody got up with me. Everybody should have got up on stage with me because we all sin. We all fall short. But I was the only one up there by myself in front of hundreds of people. And she said, you feel like God's been punishing you too. So I made decisions based on, I only deserve this much. I'm going to settle for bare minimum because I don't deserve a truly good man or a relationship or a life. Section 3, how the brain makes the story feel true. This is so interesting. And as I'm sitting there out on my patio this morning in the hot Texas sun, I had this epiphany. This is how the brain works, because as I'm studying the attachment styles and Enneagram and neuro-linguistic reprogramming and how the subconscious mind, how powerful it is, I'm learning all this stuff and it hit me. This is what really happened. And this is what I want you to all know, because if you're doing this, it needs to stop. We're going to geek out on psychology right now about confirmation bias, wiring and firing, how our brain wire and fire, and the brain looking for evidence. The brain doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's fake. This is science. For example, rejection becomes proof. In our mind, if we're rejected, that becomes proof. That confirms that we are not enough. That's proof, right? I'm in quotes. That's proof that we are not enough if we're rejected. Or a bad date becomes proof. Our brain is looking for proof to support the evidence of our beliefs about ourselves. It's looking for evidence, even if it's not true. Or failed opportunities become proof. So all these negative experiences, you can look at it one of two ways. Our brain will look at it as proof. You're right, Anna. He left you. You're not enough. This is true. This is correct. Even though it's not true and it's not healthy, our brain does not know the difference between what's true and what's not. It doesn't know the difference between what's pure and what's not, what's healthy, what's unhealthy. It's just very logical. It's just looking for proof to support our beliefs, whether they're good or bad or true or false. So the brain isn't looking for truth. It's looking for consistency. And this is Anna's version. I'm simplifying it. If you believe you're unworthy, you'll find evidence everywhere. Just like, let's say all of a sudden you want a red F-150 truck. Well, all of a sudden you're going to see them everywhere. Or if you want to be pregnant, you notice all these pregnant women. That is confirmation bias. So if you believe you're unworthy, you'll find evidence everywhere. So me getting up on stage made me feel unworthy and cheap. And so my brain looked for the evidence. It found it in my next relationship. They confirmed I'm not worth it. They confirmed I'm unworthy, that they wouldn't treasure me. And then the cycle continues year after year after year. And then I walk into a toxic marriage. How this affected my relationships. And then I'm going to read you something from my journal, which I'll probably start crying, but I feel like it's important to share this. How this affected my relationships. Like I said earlier, I allowed men to use me, use my body, thinking that this is how I'm going to connect. This is how I'm going to offer them something that's going to keep them, get their attention. I know it's super dumb, but that's just how I thought. I accepted breadcrumbs, just people who just give you a little tiny bit of attention and then they withdraw it. And then they give you a little tiny bit of attention and then they withdraw it. I settled. I saw the red flags before I got married and I settled. And then I tried really hard to do everything under the sun, to be better, to save my marriage, to figure it out, to make sense of it. And the only thing that was holding me back was the fact that I didn't understand alcoholism or dismissive avoidance or narcissism. I was completely uneducated. So if you're dealing with somebody who is not available emotionally, who lies, who gaslights you, who's manipulative, who's controlling, who wants everything on their terms, who has a hard time taking responsibility or apologizing, who does not get close to you, vulnerable, and the sex is probably bad. I'm telling you right now, you are in for A good old-fashioned suffering, to say the least. And then I tried to prove my value. I remember having this epiphany going, wow, I am trying to earn these people's approval and acceptance of me. This is wild because I shouldn't have to. I shouldn't have to work to earn people's love or approval. So I wasn't choosing from confidence and a secure attachment style. I was choosing from shame. And again, it goes back to the mindset, the beliefs that I adopted, that I chose to believe. This must be true then. If they would have me get up on stage just because I got pregnant out of wedlock, there must be something really bad with me. I must be an exception. Like, I screwed up. Like, I'm too far gone. All these other people, they're sitting in the pews looking up at me, living their perfect little lives, doing everything right. The thing that changed everything, I remember a specific memory. When my oldest son was 3, I moved into this tiny house across the street from the beach on the North Shore of Oahu. And eventually I got married and my husband moved in with us. And I remember we argued. We didn't have a deep emotional connection. He was getting shipped off to war 5 weeks after we married. He was really into sports, and that was a top priority for him, which I didn't realize before we were married. And I remember we went to pastoral counseling, which is a complete waste of time because the church, side note, does not know how to deal with narcissism, alcoholism, or dismissive avoidant attachment style. They don't know what that is. They think you can pray someone into sobriety. They think you can pray someone into a secure attachment style. They say, just pray, just align yourself with the word of God. You're not praying enough. You're not obeying your husband enough. Bullshit. That's all I'm going to say about that. Where did God say I was ruined? These are the stories I told myself. So back to the tiny house. I remember having this vision of God slipping into the shadows and just brushing his hands off and just going, you guys don't get it. You guys are losers. You're morons. Like, you just can't figure it out. But that wasn't the true story. He never abandoned me or slipped into the shadows. He was just waiting for my full surrender. Because he can't use you when you're not fully surrendered to him. And I have a very strong personality. I think that I have some of the best ideas around. I know how to have the most fun and to be the most efficient. So it's been really hard for me to finally surrender my way, my ideas, my will to God. But I finally have, and I have tasted the fruit of it. Thank goodness. It took me a long time, 48 years of my life, but I finally did it. And so he just waited. He's a gentleman. He's not going to barge into your life. You have to invite him. And it was literally only when I said, God, I invite you into this moment. I invite you into my moment of loneliness, of regret, of grief. Instead of leaning on alcohol, instead of leaning on relationships, instead of leaning on the validation from my children. And so the last question is, where did God say I was beyond redemption? He never said that, but why did I believe that? It goes back to my mindset. My brain looking for evidence to support the lies that I was living. And I love this quote that says, if the enemy can't destroy you, he will distract you. If he can't defeat you, he will distract you with anything possible. He knows your weakness, and whatever controls you is master over you. Whatever you give into, whether it's drugs or wine or sex or porn or gambling, whatever you give into is master over you. So the enemy didn't need my mistakes to destroy me. He only needed me to believe my mistakes to find me. I'm going to say that again. This is wild. The enemy didn't need me. The enemy didn't need my mistakes to destroy me. All he needed was for me to believe that they did. That's it. I believed I was too far gone and I didn't deserve anything good because of my mistakes. And it controlled my life for 20 plus years. And I wish I could go back and open my eyes to the truth of how the mind works and choose to believe differently. I wish I could have taken those stories, those false narratives, and put them in the trash. And I would have decided that I deserve better, that I don't have to earn approval or acceptance or love, that I'm good enough the way I am because I'm already chosen by Christ. I am already good. I'm already more than enough. I'm already loved and forgiven. I'm a daughter of the Most High. But I thought that my mistakes defined me. So what I see now, and then I'll read to you what I wrote. So instead of feeling damaged, disqualified, and broken now, I see growth, huge growth. And because I chose to take full responsibility of the decisions I made, of where I was in life, to own it all, it's nobody else's fault but my own. Nobody can take responsibility for where I am in life. And then I decided to own it and start healing and asking God, how can I heal more proactively? So I do my 10-minute grief sessions almost every morning. And the lessons that come my way, instead of asking, why is this happening to me? What did I do to deserve this? Now I say, God, what do you want me to learn? What do you want to teach me? What are you opening my eyes and my ears to? Because we will always be working on stuff. We will always be trying to level up, healing from things that we've suppressed for years because we don't want to deal with them. But I'm telling you right now, those things that you've suppressed will come out through depression, anxiety, overwhelm, procrastination. And then you will try to numb them through consumption. And so my 10-minute grief sessions are what I have my clients walk through, because you're proactively, intentionally choosing to heal. I see it as like two ways you can heal. You can intentionally do it by setting the timer, sitting down in the quiet, sitting in the deep, uncomfortable stillness. And you close your eyes and you just ask God, what do you want me to heal from? What do you want to show me? What do I need to grieve properly that I haven't? And you just let something come up. Maybe somebody will pop into your mind and then it will take you down this timeline, this story. Something happened to you and you remember, oh, I remember that happened to me. That really hurt. That was painful. And there's going to be a part of you that says, I don't want to go back there. I feel it. The pain is so real in my chest right now. But you have to. You have to stay there. You have to sit in the deep, uncomfortable stillness. And this is going to help you become more emotionally in tune with yourself, create emotional safety for yourself and other people. It'll help you become more emotionally intelligent, which is all these things you need to have good, healthy relationships. And so I sit there and I feel it so vividly, because I remember when you take a memory and you attach a feeling to it, it embeds it. The neuron fires and wires. And so I went back to that moment. There's many moments. And I just sat with myself and I relived it. I embraced it. I processed it. And this is the work, friends. This is the work. Going back to that moment and asking yourself, what story did I tell myself about this moment? Well, back to when I told my ex I didn't want to have sex before we're married. He agreed. Later, he guilted me into it. I remember going back and going, that told me that I was not worth waiting for. That all he wanted was just to experience what it was like to fuck me, to have sex with me. I don't even remember. It was obviously not good. It was not special. It was not romantic. It was not lovemaking. It was, let me just satisfy my own fleshly, lustful desires and let's have sex. And then I don't think we did again until we were married. And I remember on our wedding night, it wasn't good. The sex wasn't good then either. Something was off. And so I went back to that moment and just feeling so undervalued and worthless and not treasured. I remember I've always wanted to feel treasured. This is like the one thing, the one phrase that continually comes back to me. I want a man to say, you are my treasure. And I treasure you. I just wanted that. And I said, God, I will know he's the man when he says, you are my treasure. And I justified it. I knew when I married this guy that he never said those words to me, and I settled. I said, God, he didn't say I was treasured, but I'm going to do it anyway. And I didn't feel treasured. I felt the opposite of treasured. And so going back to those lessons and saying, God, what do you want to teach me through all of these things? How can I be better? How can I be more patient, more emotionally regulated, less reactive, more emotionally intelligent, not passive aggressive? Not reactive, just say the first thing or text the first thing that comes to your mind just because you're triggered. But to be able to pause in the moment, push that imaginary pause button and say, I'm triggered right now. My heart is racing. I feel warm. I feel irritated. I'm going to breathe and I'm not going to do a single thing right now. That has saved my life. Saved me from saying the things that I regret. It's taught me resilience. Now, because when I'm triggered, I'm not getting pulled into every storm. I'm not signing up for every battle the way that I used to. I'm not insisting that I have the last word like I used to. I'm not raising my voice and belittling people just to make myself feel better like I used to. God has redeemed all the years that I lost. When you surrender your life to Christ and you let him rule and reign, and you finally trust him that he knows best, and he has a good plan. Jeremiah 29:11 says, for I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, to give you a future and a hope. And then you will call upon me and come and pray to me, and I will listen to you. And you will search for me, and you will find me when you search for me with all your heart. And so it says right there, he has good plans for us. And it's only when you surrender your life and you invite him in, he's standing at the door knocking, and you have to be the one to open the door and say, okay, God, I'm done. I'm done trying and striving and pulling at my bootstraps and trying to figure it all out and make the phone call and do the thing. I'm just surrendering to you. And one of my favorite verses is Exodus 14:14. It says, I will fight this battle for you. You need only be still. And it's so counterintuitive to people to be able to surrender control and power to somebody you can't see and to say, you know best. You've got to look at the promises. You've got to look at how he showed up in your life. That's what keeps people going. Like, for example, I'm addicted to the results. When I'm eating well and working out, I'm addicted to the results. You can't really see yourself losing weight, but you're addicted to the results. And it's like, say with God, we can't really see God, but we're addicted to the results of seeing him work and show up in our lives in miraculous, amazing ways. Especially when you choose to have childlike faith, which a lot of people don't have. It needs to make sense to them. I feel sorry for the scientific brains because they want to make everything make sense and they need to see how it works out logically and sensibly. So key point is God didn't need to change my past at all. And you can't. What's done is done. But he needed to change the story I was telling myself about it. And that's only because he got my attention, because I chose to sit still. I chose to give that time to him. I chose to carve out 10 minutes and to open my eyes and just say, God, meet me where I'm at right now. Show me, what do I want to see? What do I need to see? What do I need to hear that I've been missing? Help me just level up a little more right now. Help me be a little bit better today than I was yesterday. So this is in closing. What story are you still telling yourself about your past? This is huge. Journal it. Set the timer, no distractions, and just wait and be patient. This 10-minute activity is a game changer. What labels are you carrying that God never gave you? The label of I'm worthless, I'm not treasured, I'm bad, something is wrong with me. Those are all my labels. Those are called limiting beliefs. What would change if you stopped using your mistakes as evidence against your worth? Man, well, the weights would be removed from my backpack and I could run more freely. I can run the race that I was designed to run with full energy and strength, not being hindered, not being held back because of these heavy limiting beliefs and false stories that I've been telling myself for years. It's time to reach into that backpack, deep into the depths of your soul, and to pull them out, as yucky and disgusting and painful as they are, to look at them and analyze them and say, what story have I been telling myself? Oh, this is the story. That's not true. That is not true. And I've been allowing myself to believe this story because I just don't want to take the time to freaking deal with it. And it's time to deal with it. Just 10 minutes of your day, you can erase years and years of pain if you take the time to do the work. And so maybe the biggest mistake you've made isn't what actually happened to you. Maybe it's a story you've been telling yourself about it ever since. Maybe it's the meaning that you attach to it, the meaning of what you made it mean about yourself. Because there's more than one perspective, and your perspective isn't necessarily right. And if it's a bad or negative perspective, it's not right. I'm going to read to you what I journaled. As I'm writing this, I wasn't thinking about reading this, but I'm going to, and then I'll end. And I pray to the Holy Spirit all the time, so this is super raw. Holy Spirit, I don't recall ever asking you to heal the hurt I felt when living with Steve, who is my ex-husband. I've been avoiding these heavy, dark emotions, never wanting to revisit them, but they keep resurfacing and hindering my growth, just as a 20-pound weight on my back would slow me down in a marathon. It's time. Here I go. I'm back at 3 tables. And so I'm going back to myself because of the work of the hypnotherapist who helped me understand how we need to go back to ourselves in that moment. So I'm back in the 3 Tables house. There's this beach called 3 Tables on the North Shore of Oahu. And my older, more mature 48-year-old self is walking through the tiny house looking for emotionally weak, feeling worthless, and untreasured Anna. I'm going to be emotional about this. I'm going to tell you right now. This is the first time I'm reading it out loud again since I wrote it just a few hours ago. She's sitting in the shower, sobbing. He, her ex-husband, guilted her into having sex, even though they both agreed to wait till their wedding night, which was only about a month away. She really didn't want to. She wanted this time to feel different. How much she wanted this man to treasure her enough to say, hey, I'll respect your boundaries and your body and I'll wait till our wedding night. But she didn't know what kind of man she was dealing with. This was a covert, manipulative, controlling shell of a human who wanted everything on his terms, no matter how it affected anyone else. She felt used, didn't remember anything about the actual act of sex that they shared, just about how disgusting and worthless it made her feel. So I embraced her. My 48-year-old self is imagining sitting in the shower with my 29-year-old self just before I got married. I reassured her that how Steve treated her and viewed her was a reflection of how he saw himself. This was huge for me. Like, maybe this is obvious to you, but this was the first time I had this epiphany. How Steve treated her and viewed her was a reflection of how he saw himself. It had nothing to do with me. In reality, she was chosen and treasured, adored, and precious in God's sight. She was beautiful and worthy and someone he would use, God would use, including all the pain, to change people's lives down the road and point others to his love and truth. She let out a long, deep breath she'd been holding for years. And she stood to her feet. And she looked me in the eyes and said, thank you for not giving up on us. So this is little 29-year-old Anna. In my mind, she's looking at me now saying, thank you for not giving up on us, for choosing to finally save us because no one else was coming to, and committing to healing and surrendering our life to Christ and walking in our purpose. That's what she said to me as I'm journaling. But there's one more dark night of the soul that needs to be dealt with. That late afternoon in the nursery, I'd moved to another house up on the hill at Papupakea. The house was empty. All the kids were gone. One of my best friends back then had forgotten about the plans that we made, and I was incredibly alone. I was pregnant with my youngest son. And don't judge me for this, please. Unheard, feeling worthless, lonely, full of hate towards my ex-husband, who did not see me, who didn't hear me, who was not considerate of my pregnancy needs and what I wanted, how I felt, nothing. Not considered whatsoever. In fact, my emotions, frustration, and sadness scared him because he's a dismissive avoidant. He didn't know how to handle me, so he continued to avoid, project, blame, and put himself first. So, and obviously I'm not going to follow through this, I'm just being honest with you. So I found a knife with the curtains drawn, sitting on a mattress on the floor, and held it to my heart. And I sobbed. I begged God to spare me, to take my life, to set me free from this pain. I felt the darkness closing in, the spiritual warfare, the oppression. I pressed the tip into my skin and screamed, God, I can't live like this anymore. I'm so invisible. I feel so worthless. Oh, how I desperately wanted to drive the dagger into my heart and end all the pain right then and there. But Maverick, my little son in my belly, I knew. I looked at the little fragile pregnant Anna, so I'm back again, my 40-year-old self, going back into that room, sitting on the mattress on the floor next to pregnant Anna. I was probably 32. She was sitting next to me. I took her hand and then the other one, and I turned them over and I looked at them closely. And this, I'm all just envisioning, this is just all coming to me. And I said, Anna, these hands feel weak right now. They were the hands that were just holding the dagger that wanted to just end my life. I said, with them, you want to end your life and the pain with it. But God is going to allow these hands to endure a lot more pain, but it's nothing we can't handle together. And then he'll use them to do great things you wouldn't believe it if I told you. They will heal people and point them to Christ and lead others through the same dark valleys you've been through. And just so you know, all the times you felt God slip into the shadows as if he abandoned you, he didn't. He's just waiting, patiently waiting for your full surrender so that he can finally have his way with you and use you to accomplish his will. He has a great plan for you, Anna, and it's going to be wild. You'll be in disbelief thinking, why would God use an uneducated and not very smart, middle-class, scattered yard sale, single mother, divorced, broke, zero assets, gypsy of a woman? Furthermore, you'll wonder why you even deserve to be used by God. Not only will he, but why? Why would he choose you? There's so many other people in this world who have it all together. Because since your first relationship, you've only ever been used. They all went straight for your body, even when you didn't want them to. They made you feel undervalued, and the story you told yourself was that you don't deserve anything good because you've been discarded. So everything must be difficult and earned, and this is the whole point of the podcast, right here at this moment, I'm having this epiphany about why I made all these decisions goes back to the beliefs that I adopted. Everything must be difficult and earned, and you'll need to settle for the bare minimum because you've made too many bad decisions and you've blown it. So now this is as good as it gets. Deal with it. My biggest mistake was adopting that mindset without even knowing it. This is how the mind works. I took these negative experiences, attached a feeling to it and a meaning, and then my brain began looking for evidence to support the stories, and I stopped building a life that reflected my value. This is so important. I, for years, didn't build a life that reflected my value. I built a life that supported my worthlessness. The story became my reality and kept me stuck and unproductive emotionally and spiritually for years. And that's the end of my story. Thank you for walking through it with me and for not judging me. I'm sure a lot of us have had moments, dark nights of the soul, where we wanted to end our lives because the pain is just so excruciating. I'm glad that you're still here with me and that I'm still here with you. And I share that with you to give you hope if any of you are telling yourself stories right now that are keeping you stuck and unproductive spiritually and emotionally, and you feel this heavy weight in your backpack that you've been carrying for years. It's time to understand how the mind works and how it'll constantly be looking for evidence to support your false beliefs, whether they're good or bad or true or false. And so it's time to dig deep into the depths of your soul and to have some grieving moments where you spend time intentionally healing and pulling up those things you've suppressed for years. And when you deal with those suppressed emotions, actually, it'll help you stop numbing through consumption. That means you're consuming things that numb the pain, whether it's wine, like I did, or sex, or drugs, or relationships, or money, or shopping, or gambling, whatever it is, there's so many things. And so I want to encourage you to heal and to put yourself first, your priority, and to know that God is always there for you. He loves you, and he wants to be invited into your life and to do an amazing, miraculous work, something that you would never believe. And I love this verse in the Bible that says he will do abundantly, immeasurably more than you can even possibly imagine. So go get some wind in your hair this week. Go push yourself outside your comfort zone. Do something hard, difficult, do something fun. Stop sitting on your ass and watching TV and watching life just drift by. And I will see you next week. Aloha.